The third person effect, what people really say when you're not around. We all like to think we have a pretty good handle on how people perceive us. We carefully curate our online presence, manage our interactions, and try to project a certain image. But what if I told you that the image you project is often drastically different from the one others actually see? This discrepancy is at the heart of the third person effect. It's a cognitive bias that leads us to believe that we are less susceptible to persuasive media messages than others. In simpler terms, we think we're immune to influence, while everyone else is a puppet on a string. Today, we'll delve into the fascinating world of the third person effect. We'll explore its origins, its psychological underpinnings, and its far reaching consequences in everything from advertising to politics. Prepare to have your perceptions challenged. The third person effect isn't just about thinking you're smarter than everyone else, it's a complex interplay of perception and reality. It suggests that we tend to overestimate the impact of media messages on others while underestimating their impact on ourselves. This bias manifests in two key components: a perceptual component and a behavioral component. The perceptual component is the belief that others are more influenced than we are. The behavioral component is the action we take based on that belief. For example, imagine a political ad filled with misinformation. You might think, that ad won't fool me, but it'll definitely sway those less informed voters. That's the perceptual component. Then, you might share a debunking article online. That's the behavioral component. Several psychological factors contribute to the third person effect. One major factor is self-enhancement bias. We all want to see ourselves in a positive light. Believing we're less susceptible to influence boosts our ego. Another factor is perceived social distance. We tend to think of others as a homogeneous group, different from ourselves. We assume they're less intelligent, less critical, and more easily swayed. Ego involvement also plays a role. If a message challenges our deeply held beliefs, we're more likely to dismiss its impact on ourselves. We rationalize that we're too smart to fall for it, even if others might. Interestingly, the third person effect isn't always negative. Sometimes it flips into what's known as the first person effect. This occurs when we perceive a message as positive or socially desirable. In these cases, we tend to believe that we are more influenced by the message than others. We might think, that public service announcement about recycling really resonated with me, and I'm going to start being more diligent. The first person effect is often driven by a desire to align ourselves with positive social norms. We want to be seen as virtuous and responsible, so we exaggerate the message's impact on our own behavior. The third person effect has significant real-world consequences. In advertising, it can lead to ineffective campaigns. If everyone believes they're immune to ads, no one will think they need the product. It also fuels support for censorship. People often argue that certain content, like violent video games, won't affect them, but will corrupt the youth. This justification has been used to restrict freedom of expression throughout history. In politics, the third person effect can contribute to polarization. We dismiss opposing viewpoints as manipulative propaganda, further entrenching our own beliefs. This makes constructive dialogue increasingly difficult. So, how can we combat the third person effect? The first step is simply being aware of its existence. Recognizing that we're all susceptible to cognitive biases is crucial. Cultivating critical thinking skills is also essential. We need to analyze messages objectively, considering their potential impact on ourselves as well as others. Question your initial reactions. Challenging our assumptions about others is also important. Remember that everyone is an individual with their own unique experiences and perspectives. Avoid generalizations and stereotypes. Media literacy plays a vital role in mitigating the third-person effect. Understanding how media messages are constructed and the techniques used to persuade audiences can help us become more discerning consumers. Media literacy education should be a priority in schools and communities. It empowers individuals to critically evaluate information and resist manipulation. It helps us see through the smoke and mirrors. By developing our media literacy skills, we can become more informed citizens and less susceptible to the third-person effect. We can make better decisions and contribute to a more informed society. The third-person effect is a powerful cognitive bias that shapes our perceptions and behaviors. It leads us to believe that we're less susceptible to influence than others, with far-reaching consequences. By understanding the psychological underpinnings of this effect, and by cultivating critical thinking skills and media literacy, we can mitigate its negative impacts. We can move beyond bias and towards a more nuanced understanding of ourselves and the world around us. Ultimately, recognizing our own vulnerabilities is the first step towards becoming more resilient and informed individuals. It's about acknowledging that we're all human and that we're all susceptible to influence in one way or another.